On today's episode of Joy in the City True Stories, we're going to spend a few minutes with Tabi Melhorn as she opens up about her journey from betrayal to faith.
So when I'm thinking about my journey and where I'm at now, I always can picture just this one particular place. I'm driving home one day and I'm at this spot on the road. And it's almost like a smell that you can recall. You know, you smell chocolate chip cookies and you think of your grandmother's kitchen, and it's this road for me. And when I'm driving on it, my phone rings. And I'm expecting to answer the phone, and my husband is in this business meeting with all of the church leaders where he is a pastor at, and I'm expecting to answer the phone and for him to say, it was all a misunderstanding. Everything's fine. You know, you're gonna apologize. Everything will go back to the way it was. And there's deafening silence. And so I found out weeks before that these people who were supposed to be friends, that we had kids together, we have dinner parties together, we just do life together, they take some of this small knowledge about me and they twist it. And isn't that the way betrayal always works? It's never from somebody who's an enemy, it's always a friend. You do everything that you think is going to make sure that people know who you are, how your heart is. And sometimes it just really doesn't matter, because the version of you, whatever that is, it's just never gonna fit in that box. And so Seth goes to this meeting thinking he can sort of clean up after me, again, for who knows how many times since we've been married. And he tells me we've been given 3 weeks severance and it's time to go. When would you like for us to announce it at church? And you'd think that I feel so free in this moment. Finally, I couldn't live up to what they wanted. This should be a release. And yet it's devastating when the people you feel closest to tell you to take a hike. If there's a time when I've ever felt hollow, just the most empty in my life, it was then. We didn't have a plan. I just felt like he wasn't speaking to me. Everything I had known in my life just disintegrated in seconds. Early that spring, my dad, who runs a teen center and has for about 15 years, came and spoke at our church, and I had watched him speak 100 million times. I can quote his sermons for you. I know exactly what he's going to say, and I'm supposed to be running around helping prepare things, check sound, get ready for the last worship song, and yet I'm enamored as I'm watching him speak, and he's talking about who's going to step up and love the unlovable. And Jesus is saying, you're gonna do it. And I'm sitting there no. I have my perfect life. Even though, sometimes I don't love everything about my husband's job. We're gonna build our dream home in the next few years. We are starting to make plans for all our new furniture. I know where my kids are gonna go to school. Everything's done, so don't mess it up. And he's like, you are going to the door. So I tell my husband after church, this is what God said. And we mutually decided that it was a misunderstanding of God's voice. Isn't that funny? We always decide, when it's inconvenient, we're that couldn't really be God's voice. It was probably, he means a door will open and you will go through it. It couldn't be the exact ministry. So we nod, we go to lunch with my parents, everybody laughs. But deep inside, I knew what he was saying. Seth comes out of the shower and immediately grabs his phone, and I'm like, what are you doing? Who are you texting? What is this frantic thing? And he's like, I'm gonna text your dad right now, and I'm gonna tell him he needs to pray about me coming to the door. And then about an hour later, he was like, I think I just told the head of a ministry that he needs to give me his job. And we just kind of laugh, and the coolest part is we don't know. The exact minutes before he sends the text, I find out later, my mom and dad had sat down together and said, we need to pray about Tabi and Seth coming to the door because they are obviously the fit. I mean, he just, Nobody gets God's plan like God, right? There's all this fear, like, how am I gonna feed my kids? Where are we gonna live? What if I can't pay my mortgage? All these what ifs. And Jesus was just saying, what if I just take care of it all? So in the in-between, in the dry spell, when we're leaving our church, before we come to the door, what happens? At that time, I was ready to quit church. Obviously, it wasn't working. I wasn't what people wanted. It would just be better if I'd go away, if I'd just stay at home. But my sister invited me to come to church with her, and there was going to be a guest prophetic speaker who I had never heard a prophetic speaker before, and I was very skeptical and not interested, but I was going to sort of prove to her that I knew more about how God works than she does. And so I go, and the speaker tells this story of Samson and how Samson, God gives him a jawbone of a donkey, like of all the weapons in the world. And Samson takes down 3,000 men, something like that. And he has them piled up in heaps. Like that's how many men there are. And this story feels so real. Like, yes, I have lived the war. But Samson gets to the end and he's thirsty. And there's no water anywhere. And I'm sitting there feeling like, yes, this is my life. Like I fought the war and now I'm at the end and I'm in the desert. Like, what happens now? I got out of one tough situation. Am I just supposed to sit out here and die now? Did you just leave me to be this dehydrated mush out here? And Samson is saying the same thing. He's like, God, you let me defeat this army, and now what? And it's so awesome. It says in Judges 15 that God brings forth water out of the hollow place in the land. And there was a promise that there was going to be water that was just going to rush out of this hollow place and just soak my life. I'm listening to him, but I'm also, Jesus is writing a song through me. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but I'm sitting there listening to the sermon and it's like God, I'm using the pen, but he's telling me the words to write down. And so I write down this song just about God promising that there is so much water gonna flow out of this empty place, and wherever I'm most dry, he's about to bring a flood. And then he did.
That's all the time we have today. Thanks for watching Joy in the City True Stories. Join us next week as we highlight another person or organization having an impact in our city. Be encouraged because God is moving in our city.